Hey guys, disembodied voice of Atrioc here. This is normally the part of the clip when a stupid chat message would whoosh on the screen and I would say something about stocks or treasury yields or bonds or how I don't have glizzy fingers. But today is a little bit different. We have just launched our Lemonade Stand podcast Patreon, the podcast I do with Doug, and Aiden. And our very first Patreon episode is up. It's an hour of bonus content recorded on a different day. And this first episode had a section that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the discussion. I enjoyed especially what Aiden was saying. I resonated with it a lot. And I thought it'd be cool for everyone to see it. So I asked the guys and we can make it public. So I'm making this section public on the Big A channel. I hope you check it out. And if you like it, check out the full Patreon. A little bit of context going in. We had a episode covering the concept of abundance. It's a new book by Ezra Klein. And the idea of, building more housing and changing housing regulations so we can get more stuff built. And Doug, I think particularly got some feedback and he wanted to address a comment and it led to a much broader discussion about politics and labels and things I found very interesting. So here's the clip. Check it out. And if you like it, check out patreon.com/lemonade stand. Thanks, guys.
So I saw a comment that I thought was interesting, which is, I think it's very interesting how Doug's response to Democratic leadership is to declare himself a moderate, while other responses, including my own, were to declare themselves even further left to distance ourselves from the train wreck of a left-wing party we have in America. What is funny about this is I think objectively Doug and I would agree on most things, and then lists a number of interesting things. So that caused me to reflect a little bit and just kind of consider that I think the Democratic Party is so deeply unliked by basically everybody right now.
Very low approval rating right now.
So low approval rating. It kind of made me start to wonder, like, I don't think my values have changed anyway. I think it's just I become so grossed out by the particular people leading the supposed left-leaning party that maybe I'm not moving moderate, or, this person I have had the same reactions, but we're just responding to it slightly differently. I thought that was very interesting. And that also clarified for me some of what I think when there was very impassioned responses in the comments, probably some of that was that of feeling like they also have that same frustration, but they're just seeing a different solution to it. I thought that was super interesting. I'm curious if you guys had thoughts.
We had a discussion. You were talking about this, and this really stuck with me the way you phrased it. I'm going to try and recreate it. And I've noticed this because I've talked about politically sensitive issues online for a while now. I think in a effort to have a mental shortcut or have some way of like saving yourself time. You ever seen that grid of the four political?
Yeah.
It's like authoritarian, libertarian, or like left and right or whatever. I feel like that line of thinking has ruined so many people's brains on having any idea where I think they're more worried about where they fall in a category and then adopting all of the positions they think are in that color code rather than trying to figure out where they actually stand, where their values are on each issue. And the more I have developed my stances on each issue, the more I've researched or learned, the more I feel very constrained and frustrated with that line of thinking. But because it makes it really easy when you're writing a comment to be like, to try and find out where someone stands so you can know whether you agree or not.
The idea that it is just a 2D line and you can only move left or right.
You're like targeting computer trying to figure out where they are and then you can know whether you hate it or not. It's become more and more frustrating for me. Just for example, like of the candidates that are in America right now, the one I'm probably the most appealed to is like Bernie Sanders because I feel like he's been consistent. But he said something like, when he talks about rent control, I personally have read a lot that makes me not believe in rent control. Yeah. So like that's just a stance I have that is totally opposite. I don't have any cognitive dissonance where I need to go like, well, Bernie likes it. That's in my category. And I don't find that a lot from people that I think are really trying to save the time by just finding a group they can walk into.
It makes me wonder if my thinking of saying I feel that I am now more moderate is basically that. It's not that I'm actually becoming more moderate necessarily, but it's more just like I'm now feeling more of a sense that I can't just trust one half of the political spectrum to like tell me what is or is not the case. And now I feel like really on a case-by-case basis, I am going to individually analyze it and come to my own conclusions. And in that context, ironically, the term moderate feels like it fits that worldview the best, where you're trying to be open-minded to it, even if that is not actually what moderate means,
there's two kinds of moderate. Like there's a moderate where it's like almost wishy-washy, no stance, and it's like just trying to, both sides have a good point. And there's a moderate where it's like you have a lot of but like serious points you believe in that kind of average out to a more, It's an entirely different term of moderate. And I do find that all these words are like so constraining. All these words that people have relied on for like online political discussion are so limiting, and there's such minefields that it's very, very hard to even say one of them without giving the wrong. It's like a game of telephone where it hits somebody in the middle and they get the wrong neuron fire on what you're trying to say. Anyway, I sympathize with, I think, some of the, I don't know, frustration you might feel with getting some pushback. When I think you were mischaracterized by some comments in like a way that you shouldn't have, but because you hit some of these minefields. I'm not saying that there's something you can't like follow up on or add to, but I noticed that, and I wanted to say that like it's something I've had thoughts about.
Aiden, who do you vote for?
And why are they the best and why is everyone else the worst?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Jill Stein. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, first of all, I think
you can simplify whatever you were thinking into one word, and you can pick the word.
We'll know if you're the right one.
A very short response to the thing you were saying at the beginning is that I do think in American political context, our Democratic Party is not actually that left. And if you look at it in a global political context,
yes,
it is a pretty moderate party.
Sure, yeah.
But my beef, or maybe even anger, with some of the comments and the way that people talked about what you said and the way people engaged with the idea that we read abundance or this different idea of, you know, where you stand based on a label, depending on how they interpreted what you said, really illustrated a point for me of how I am done. I feel very done with political labels in this part of my life. I come at this from a perspective of I'm like a little younger than you guys. I think like 4 years.
You're way younger than Atrioc, but yeah.
Okay, fuck yourself.
And I think
you're older than me. I always forget.
It's cool if I just go on the offensive. You usually forget.
It's very impressive.
You usually don't realize.
Very well played.
I was trying to remember. I was like,
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Every time somebody younger than me on any of the Twitch stream, like Squeaks turned like 30, 31, I was like, you are so fucking old. And nobody thinks to question how old I am when I say this.
What's fucked up is that you have taken, people call you bald. You're not bald.
Yeah.
You're not bald at all.
I know.
There's something bald about him, and you're taking bald pride. You're like, I'm balding.
From a real, genuine, yeah.
Me and Squeaks are out here suffering, and you're like, oh, bald. Don't call me bald.
To be fair to me, I truly don't want the joke to exist. I've not encouraged it in any way, I assure you.
No,
when people come out and say, oh, a podcast with 3 bald guys, if Doug's bald, it's over for me.
Yeah, exactly. 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 I'm not even at bald, but you're calling him bald? It's crazy.
When I was younger, particularly in college and coming up in the social media space of Twitter and maybe even the Smash community to an extent, I think just across the board, I exist in a heavily left-leaning social space. And I don't mean like, and I went to school in Seattle. So when I say left-leaning, I mean like a lot of my friends were like, Mao and Stalin were chill, and we should really move in that direction. Like I'm talking about dealing with like that spectrum of person, and I think having dealt with a lot of versions of leftists through my social life, have grew a little tired with some of the comments on that episode and the way that people came at you specifically, because depending on their perspective of what leftism is and what is like morally correct to do, they label things differently depending on whether they like it or not. The easiest demonstration of this is that I think a big chunk of abundance is talking about building housing so it is more widely available. And on one hand, a group of what I would call leftists, and I don't mean Democrats, because there is a group of leftists that will say, well, they're just like not left enough, or they're not left in the way I like. They will say that approach to housing, that you label yourself a moderate for liking, Doug, come with us. That's what leftists actually think. You're actually a leftist because you think that. But then there's another group of leftists that are calling that solution neoliberal slop, and they don't like it. And I think terms like neoliberal, like left, like right, whatever, I think the problem with these things, it's not that they have no utility at all, and it's not that they don't actually have academic definitions that maybe we could agree and talk about things with.
Yeah.
But the problem is these terms mean very different things to different groups of people. One demonstrated conversation I had was in the Yard Discord, and we were talking about abundance being too neoliberal, basically. I encountered this pushback a lot, which is, I didn't like that because I want you to explain to me what that means to you. And then this conversation diverged and we started talking about like Nordic political and economic systems. And they were talking about how that is too neoliberal and exists within this like world order that like needs to be deconstructed. I think you can actually make arguments for those things. I think you can break it down and have long form discussions and validate your position
in the Yard
within
Discord,
this
which is
world
like the Socrates round.
Okay, I want you guys to this is a quick tangent. This is actually really funny. Is unfortunately in the absence of a real Lemonade Stand Discord, there's a channel, there's a set of channels in the Yard Discord, which has a shit ton of channels.
Dude, we need a Discord and a Reddit, because my Reddit's getting
I know. In our Discord, there's 4 channels that are called Ludwig Zone, Nick Zone, Aiden Zone, Slime Zone, right? And the idea is you can talk about things either specifically related to us or for all the channels except Ludwig Zone, you can talk about with us directly.
I see. You get it in there.
Aiden Zone has unfortunately just turned into the Lemonade Stand Discord.
Lemonade Zone.
It's
Ooh.
a nightmare.
Do we need to make a new Discord then?
Yeah, let's do that one.
If you sign up for this Patreon, you get access to the Yard's Aiden's
We're gonna
Discord.
backdoor you in, and we're
Yeah.
gonna sell it for a discount.
But in this discussion,
We're transshipping
This is to get around the Yard
Yard
tariffs.
Patreons. We go through Thailand, and you can get.
to me, this was a very limited critique of that I have, because I've been in the spaces for so long, have noticed a lot of young leftists do, particularly young leftists who haven't actually read anything. They'll just say, they'll just toss out a label and be like, I don't like the vibes of this. And then they'll call it like neoliberal as an example.
Right.
Which is frustrating because I was like, what specifically about the Nordic system do you not like? I understand that it might not be the end game, but I think like the examples I gave is like strong unionization, nationalization of some industries, like Norway, they nationalized oil, right?
Yeah.
And one more thing, doesn't really matter. And I listed all of those off, and I was like, which one of these goals do you think is too neoliberal? And I'm like, unionization and nationalization of industry, what part of those things is like not left to you?
Right.
If we can't agree on that, where does this conversation even go from here? And the person kind of caved. They were like, actually, yeah, those are like, my frustration is because people interpret these labels in different ways and use them so inconsistently and is so imparted on what they personally believe is valid, it's just lazy. I'm tired of having conversations in the binary of like right and left. I want to have conversations about policy and goals and how we get there and how we change things, because I'm sick of getting watered down in the idea that I need to like ascribe to the label correctly to get you to fucking come along and have the conversation about housing.
Hell yeah.
It is so, it is, you do not care. And this is also why I got a little mad on like Doug's behalf, is think about the setting of how this conversation is coming up to begin with. Doug wants to have a conversation like we all do about how do we solve the housing crisis in America. The bar that we all start at is we don't want people to be homeless. People should be able to afford homes and they should be able to live good, happy lives. So why, with that being the starting point, is your first instinct to be like, Doug is getting a little too right wing because he wants housing for people? Like, it's a delusional conversation that has nothing of value, creates no action, and it doesn't let us solve any sort of problem. And I say that as somebody who was this guy. I was trapped in this world of like trying to participate and like be morally correct and like display. And it doesn't mean these conversations are absent of values, but you need to understand how your values are attached to action. So that has been my thought about it, is like I'm sick of labels. I think they are not productive. I have a set of like morals and values that I want to fulfill, and I want the policies attached to them that fulfill them the best. And what it doesn't matter if you're right or left. It's like those terms don't mean anything because they mean different things to different people.
I think that is very well said.
Yeah, I really liked how he said that. I thought you were spitting. I think that's fire. And one thing to add is like another minefield here that I have encountered is that sometimes, especially I feel like lately, I've seen politicians or public figures, and they've figured out an extra layer to this, which is like the snake skin, where they can say a value that I agree with, and then their actions don't match it. Like, you know, and one good example, I think you might have brought this up or talked about it, is like, I am personally of the, I think it's almost anyone, if you ask me, do you want to make government more efficient? It's very simple. It's like an easy, everyone's like, yeah, I think government should be more efficient. We should use our money effectively. And someone like an Elon Musk is tweeting like videos of economists that I agree with and stuff like that. But then in his actual actions are doing none of the things. Like, you can speak all the words you want. I mean, even
this is why that interview with Steve Bannon was so disgusting to me, because when you watch these interviews with Steve Bannon that have come up more recently, he's a really strong insight into the Trump campaign, why Trump makes the decisions that he does. And from Bannon's perspective, he's a strong working class like perspective of why he wants to make the changes he wants to make. I want to again stress, I do not agree.
You fuck with Steve Bannon.
No, you're on the right.
But,
heavy. Yeah, he is. Yeah, heavily.
Maybe what bothers me even more is that even if Steve Bannon 100% believes what he says he's saying in these interviews, it is not backed by the administration or the people that are on board with it at all. If you truly believed what you're saying, Steve Bannon, you wouldn't stand behind the people that are in power right now. They don't even follow what you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any, it doesn't, exactly.
Yeah, I fucking agree so hard. And there's like a long history of this. I mean,
yeah.
You know, a classical example, and this is not something I agree with, but like Ronald Reagan was a guy that came into power saying, you know, the worst thing you can hear is the government is getting involved. We're gonna make small government. But in actuality, he drastically increased spending. He he drastically increased the military, cut taxes, blew out our deficit. He was like, we got to balance our budgets. He says these things, but in actions, there's none of it. There's nothing even close to whatever his ideal is. So I can't even get to the point where I'm like debating you on the ideal or like discussing the ideal because it's not happening. That is what's been, to me, the most, there's a lot of things to be mad, but to me, the thing that irks me the most about this Trump administration is like, there's nothing I can even ideologically talk about. There's no ideology there. It's all whatever his whims are. It's all loyalty to him. It's all one guy doing random shit. It's impossible for me to even find the thing that I'm talking about to break it down because it changes so dramatically. So that's a frustration I've been having with politics in general. It's like, I just think these people don't even match up to what they say.
Now that we've both gone on two fiery
you want to
rants.
Rant it up.
How
dude.
do you feel like that engages with what you're talking about? Well, like, what do you think about?
Yes. It was interesting. I think the use of labels was the flashpoint for people to respond with a lot of emotion. And I'm realizing, you know, again, like basically what we're saying is the same kind of transformation you've had of feeling like just being really tired of like everything needs to be categorized into these buckets in terms of like, let's just try to understand what's going on. That to me is so important. And my biggest frustration with politics and with political discourse is just that nobody seems to be able to talk with any kind of respect or acknowledgement of each other. It's all just, it's one side versus the other. It seems like it's maybe dissipating a little bit now. And that's why I'm glad we are doing this, because I feel like it's an effort to explicitly push back against that. And it's interesting as I've attempted to put labels on myself to figure out where I am in this, that in this conversation in the past, week or two, I'm like, oh yeah, kind of just the labels don't really make sense to me. I'm just trying to view things on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
I think the way, you know what, this is funny. I feel this way about my sexuality. I always talked about when I was growing up, because I've had a lot of people reach out to me I'm bisexual, and I figured out I was like bisexual when I was like pretty young.
You're moderate.
And I'm
So that means you're a moderate.
I sit on the fence.
You're like a Joe Biden.
Okay.
You're not the first person to make that joke. But the thing when I was growing up, the way I looked at it was like, I just like who I like. I don't really think about it very much. I don't think I don't really care that I'm bisexual. I don't take a lot of like pride in it. It's just like, kind of like who I like, and that
Right.
and that's it. And as I talked to other, particularly men in my life who like were friends of mine and then came forward to me at some point and basically told me that they were like, how did you know? How did you figure that out? Because they were going through feelings of figuring that out in like their early to mid 20s. And I often told them that. I was like, you don't need to get caught up. You don't need to like prove anything to anybody. I think this is weirdly similar to that in that I do ascribe myself as I'm left. I'll say it in a very general sense. I'm a left-leaning person. If you took most economic and social issues and you ascribe them to a basic spectrum that most people understand, I will probably be on the left side in almost everything you bring up. But the reason why I keep it vague and I say almost is I don't think that's important. We should talk about the like dynamism of each issue and talk about the way it interacts with other things and get to the bottom of like each specific thing.
Not much to be said there, but yeah, I fucking agree. I think I'm glad we said this. It's a good.
Yeah.
Hey, another problem solved by,
We're
by
solving
Lemonade Stand.
problems left and right.
To me, I'm hoping, because I think the Patreon will be successful. We don't know yet, but I think this sets a good base, and the tone that I wanted coming into the show with you guys is I'm over that time in my life where I want to just make broad generalizations about things. I want to dig into problems and talk about them and present them in like as honest of a way as possible, and also be receptive when like new information or ideas are given to me, which I think is a general strength of mine. Is like my mind isn't set about these things. I want as much information as possible to make a better decision because I care about the problem being solved. I don't care about the idea of being on what side of the issue. If we came back to housing, I want people to have houses. Like, how do we get there?
Brave.
But it's not, right?
Yeah.
It's not brave. It's like, why can't we all are starting from there?
No, I think you summed up in a more potent way, I think, how I've been feeling, and verbalized it in a pretty good way, because that's very much how I think about this. Yeah.
And if we could get back to roasting Doug, he said Brightline was high-speed rail. What a
Dumbass
what an idiot,
alert.
dude.
What?
What
Oh,
an
come on.
Idiot.
What
He said it
a
was high
fucking
speed.
right-wing shill.
Right.